A 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, hello.
Rock Talk back on the dial, traveling at a speed at 33 1/3 RPMs, where the vinyl will bring you to a new listening destination. I'm your co-host, co-creator, and co-conspirator, and welcome to 2025. I am with my two amigos here, none other than the man that imitates Herman Helmsley's hairdo. Sherman Helmsley's hairdo.
Stephen Wheeler.
And the man that wants to look like Charles Bronson when he gets older.
It's Death Wish, Dr. Ian Clark.
And today we're talking about rock bands. Are they oblivious or not?
Well, rock music. Well, let's start with rock music. Does it face oblivion or not?
Does it face it or not, Ian? That is the question.
Well, listen, YouTuber extraordinaire Rick Beato isn't enthusiastic about the future of guitar-driven rock. But we disagree. In this episode, the three amigos, Clark, Kennedy, and Wheeler, fuse our God-given talents to deliver a tour de force rebuttal in three parts. First, we offer a statistical look at rock music with stats on downloads, streaming, vinyl sales, that kind of thing. That'll give us a good foundation. Mr. Wheeler, who is in the last stages of recovering from a botched Brazilian waxing, will give us that info. Next, we discuss who the big rock bands are today, the Greta Van Fleets, etc. When did they begin? Where did they begin? How much touring do they do? What do they sound like? What about the Rolling Flintstones? Dinosaurs like that. Mr. Ferris Kennedy, who in an upcoming podcast will relate his recent experience in the adult film industry, graces us with his erudition. Finally, your humble servant, but lovable servant, Dr. Ian Clark, look at the impact of social media on the future of rock music. We must issue a warning, though. The podcast you're about to hear will make you 6 to 7% smarter in terms of rock music data. This can be used for good or evil, and I hope and we trust you know the difference. So let's start off. Let's hear from Stephen Wheeler as he looks at the facts, ma'am. Just the facts.
Just the facts,
Just the facts. So if we go from a statistics point, so I'm using statistics from about a year ago from YouGov. So 1 in 5 American, including 29% of older adults, say classic rock is their favorite genre of music. That drops slightly when you get to the 18 to 44-year-olds. Then rap and hip-hop is their favorite. Then pop and rock, classic rock actually share their major interests in terms of what they listen to on a regular basis. And also another statistical study that I found was that adults, this is all U.S. numbers,
right.
They are the bellwether of the market.
Yeah, they're going to have the stats, too.
Exactly. So according to Statista, study that was done with U.S. adults 18 to 64, no matter the gender, rock, alternative, and indie music, mostly rock, is 45% of the time the favorite musical genre. After that, it's country music, pop adult, urban, to my great surprise, classical music. Then you get to dance, jazz, and folk that shared the rest of the board, if we can call it that.
Right.
That's not to say, though, if we use pure statistics, this could look somewhat dire, but we're not in those statistics looking at the sale of vinyl records. We're not looking at streaming. This changes a lot of things. Let's face it, we're no longer in the 60s, 70s, and 80s where all you had to do to look at cultural dominance was to look at either the Billboard sales or
the vinyl sales, yeah.
The vinyl sales. In the last 30 years, U2, Coldplay, and the Eagles, which are all rock to a certain extent,
Sure.
have had the top 10 highest grossing tours of the last quarter century. Blink 182, Tool are in the top 50. Radio is another metric that's no longer really used.
It's sad, though.
It's sad, but if you listen to it, you'll have a better picture. And a lot of these stations are using rock. There's not a lot of jazz stations out there. There's not a lot
That's
of
a good
bands.
point. Yeah.
If I say Linkin Park, 21 Pilots, Panic at the Disco, Fall Out Boy, these are all not necessarily classic rock, but they're all rock bands.
Well,
and
they're modern.
They're modern.
They're 2010 and up.
Exactly. So we're no longer in the TV channel universe with a handful of print magazines, radio stations. We've grown up as Gen Xers where everybody knew that Seinfeld and Friends were the big shows and Gilligan's Island was something you saw in Education every week. It was easier back then to parse the metrics and know what's what. AC/DC now, to the younger generation, they're the soundtrack of Iron Man. Led Zeppelin is the soundtrack to Thor. A Master of Puppets is on Stranger Things. They're all culturally relevant. This is not a dying genre in terms of relevancy. It's just, it's a different way of looking at the world. But if we go for like a purely capitalistic approach, let's go with sales. What sells more than vinyl right now? Nothing. CDs are actually in 2024 coming
I know,
back
it's
up.
kind of interesting.
Mostly for, I would think, price reasons, because it's getting...
good point.
It's cheaper.
It's cheaper, because in Canada, what's the average price now? $50 for a record, more or less?
Maybe not
for a
that
new
much.
record?
You know what? Actually, I'll use a real statistical number. Darren at Vertigo told me you're looking at anywhere from 39 to about 45.
Yeah.
50 if you're getting that double.
Yeah.
And I hate the double albums. I really do. They annoy me because they're too thick and they take too much room. And I got to use two things. Never mind. But yeah, that's what it is. But yeah, vinyl and CDs, yes, it is cheaper, and physical copy is coming back because I think streaming is starting to go down. And to be honest, I prefer physical copy. The artwork, the liner notes. There's just a story to it.
Exactly. And
You're not alone.
And
well, I know I'm not alone. You're in it on too. You love the physical copy. I know you do.
I love vinyl.
Well, all three of us do.
And we can also stop and wonder, why has physical media come back? Well, there are a few things that we can actually easily spot. Record Store Day, that's been launched in 2008, used to be something rather niche. Now, I mean, we can see the lineups in our own city in at least 3 or 4 stores that are really into it.
Sure.
The lines are insane. The other thing was the pandemic. If you're stuck at home, you want something real, and the record sales actually went up after that. And the other thing the pandemic brought was digital burnout. Like, we realize the prophecy of you will own nothing and like it and pay it was true, and now people are rebelling against that. They want something for their money, and they also want...
That's a good point.
...collectability, because it's hard to brag about your collection of 1,000 movies on iTunes to a friend, but if you have 1,000 movies or 1,000 records, it's going to use a lot of space, real estate space in your house.
Oh, man, I hope I'm not there yet.
And there's the aesthetic. The aesthetic, it's good for the soul. Like my colleague was saying, like, you hold it in your hands, you read the linear notes, and you don't need special glasses to do it, because let's face it, the CD were slightly a pain for
There's
that.
a tactile thing going on.
It's a tactile thing.
You know what I really find a movie that everyone should watch is the 1995 movie Empire Records. Gives a good synopsis of what a record store was like, and you know, that nostalgic thing, the physical copy, the hard copy, the CD, the vinyl. No streaming, you're right, it's starting to, you know, and on Sirius XM, the classic vinyl channel, they actually still play off a record, and you can hear the crackling, which I like.
Sounds great.
You get used to it, actually.
Yeah, I love it.
You know, when you hear it without the crackling, you go, what's wrong?
Yeah, seriously, what's wrong with it? Yeah.
Well, like Revolution 9 from the Beatles, if you only heard like the CD, you're like, what the hell? There's something missing.
Yeah, you need the
Well,
crackling.
really?
Yeah,
you need the crackling.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because otherwise it doesn't make sense.
But sometimes in the old days, the record would get a skip. And when you hear without the skip, you say, well, there's something wrong with this. Well, thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Next up is Ferris Kennedy as he looks at the big guitar-driven bands of today, thereby further proving our hypothesis that rock is not dead, Mr. Beato.
Well, here's what I wrote, and I'll get to it. I kind of titled this Top Rock Bands of Today, with
Okay.
3 question marks. Where do we start from here? Who, what, and where are these so-called rock bands of 2024 and beyond? Are we really witnessing a possible resurgence, or is it the majority of the people stuck in the past like me? I'll be honest, the newer music has not intrigued me one bit. I, for one, still listen and purchase physical copies on vinyl of the bands we all grew up to, trying to find the originals of the year or one released not too long after their original release date. So where does this leave me when it comes to placing faith in the new music today to carry on the legacy of bands before? Thank God the Rolling Stones are still performing as one of the original pioneers. Thank God for the internet and its conspiracy theory that Elvis Presley lives on in the pastor from St. John, New Brunswick,
Well, he does,
Bob
baby.
Joyce,
Come on, man, he does.
who has his parish in Texas. Apparently his resemblance, voice, and mannerisms are one of the king himself.
Of course it is, baby.
So who do we have today that can forever save rock music? So one band I'm going to mention is White Reaper. White Reaper, I believe they're American. I'm not 100% sure exactly where they're from because they opened up for Foo Fighters a couple of years ago at Blues Fest. That's one band. They're a little bit heavier. They're not bad. So where does this go? We got Greta Van Fleet. Well, they were formed in 2012 in Frankenmuth, Michigan, who claim they are not a Led Zeppelin cover band or tribute band. Fair enough to
Fair
that,
enough.
as your songs are original, but your sound and lead vocalist Josh Kiska's vocals emulate those of Robert Plant. Plus his twin brothers Josh and Jake, plus Sam, the other brother, who in my opinion emulates John Paul Jones on bass and performs barefoot like the legendary bassist.
Yeah,
And there's also the drummer Danny Wagner, who's just Danny Wagner. Now they have 4 studio albums. Not familiar with their later 2, but the first 2 are okay. The second band that I have here is Maneskin, which was formed in 2016 in Italy, actually Rome to be exact. They are they're an Italian glam pop rock band.
That's
who rose
interesting.
to prominence in the 11th season of the Italian talent show X Factor, performing covers of The Killers, which is Somebody Told Me. They are composed of Damiano David, Victoria De Angelis, Thomas Raggi, and Ethan Torchio. They have 3 studio albums. They're big in Italy, obviously. And they have, Begging is their big song here that crossed over into North America. The third band I have here is Ghost Hounds, which was formed in 2009.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, they're Pittsburgh-based. They're basically blues-tinged rock band masterminded by Thomas Tull, a guitarist, songwriter, and entrepreneur who started the group. They are basically, they're bluesy, and they had an album called Roses Are Black, and they basically lined up gigs to open up for ZZ Top and the Rolling Stones, Bob Seger, so it falls into that sound and category that they're in. They got, they have 2 studio albums. They're up and coming, but they've been around since 2009. Another band which I thought I'd mention because it's Canadian, and before we become the 51st state, you want to kind of honor these people.
Good point. Yeah.
It's called The Damn Truth, Canadian rock band from Montreal, currently signed with Spectra Music, and they have released 3 studio albums, Deer in the Headlights, Devilish Folk, and Now or Nowhere. And they've been around since like 2011, 2012. So it's interesting that you've been around for over a decade.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. So you're still there. And this is the first I heard of them because I had to do some research. And then the 5th band I want to mention is Thunder Mother. The quintessential hard-rocking sound of Sweden's Thunder Mother takes cues from AC/DC and Motorhead, but sees the group add a modern twist as heard on acclaimed efforts like Heatwave and Black and Gold. This is the brainchild of Sweden's Filippa Nazil. Thunder Mother's first, they came around in 2012, and she moved to Stockholm to start a classic rock band, so it's all female. Okay, she teamed up with the Italian guitarist Giorgia Carteri, and they also have a drummer by the name of Tilda Stenquist, Linda Strom as the bassist, and they have an Irish vocalist, Claire Cunningham.
Interesting.
2013. So, to paraphrase, now, Where does this leave us? Until these bands are ready to take over as headliners at festivals, live events, or even Wembley Stadium, the bands mentioned above are just a handful of bands that have been circulating in the past decade, working hard at achieving some popularity and notoriety. I have a list of bands that I believe that are still young enough to perform, write, and create new music for those listeners like me that do not want to let go of this security blanket. So I'm going to list them off here. The Rolling Stones. Since 1962, they are still going strong, and at this point, I, for one, want them to be immortal. So this works for me. 30 Seconds to Mars, formed in the late 90s by brothers Jared and Shannon Leto. They're around 50 to 53 in age, and they could still perform, write music, and sell out crowds. Metallica. Since the mid-80s, they took the world by storm, and why not? Lars just turned 61, so we're good.
Yeah.
Foo Fighters. Despite the passing of Taylor Hawkins, they are still producing good rock music. Personally, I'm not a fan of new drummer Josh Freese, but that's a me issue. And my drum teacher, Bubba Boulay, agrees with me, and we share the same feeling about it. Personally, if I was the Foo Fighters, I would have reached out to Chad Smith or Dana Carey. That's just me. Nickelback. Yes, the greatest Canadian band is still young. They barely hit 50, and they are still capable of performing and producing good music. Red Hot Chili Peppers, they have been around since the 80s and have had a stable lineup for years. Plus, with the return of John Frusciante, they can still produce and perform. Barely 60 years of age-ish, so they're good. Pearl Jam, they've been the founding fathers of grunge and are still standing. New album was good, so they have adapted to a heavier style and can still perform. AC/DC, I put them on here for touring purposes only. 50 years and counting, keep it going, that's it. Guns N' Roses, again, for touring purposes only. They hit the 40-year mark. Motley Crue, believe it or not, they're still relevant. So yes, please continue. Imagine Dragons, modern rock that has done quite well with collaboration with Kendrick Lamar and other artists. Yeah. It's relevant. The Eagles, please, just for touring purposes. Nothing left to prove.
I know.
They have nothing to prove. Oasis, I'm all in for this reunion. I'm happy. Black Crowes, this is great to have some of the rock bands of back in the day in 2025 moving forward. Green Day, nominated for Grammys this year. Yeah. So, again, touring purposes only.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, but they really, apparently the new album they put out is good, and I didn't have a chance to listen to it. But, when I wrote this, I figured, I just wrote it yesterday, so I figured, what the hell? Touring purposes only. Blink-182, you could keep touring. That's fine.
Yeah.
Fall Out Boy, they're still young enough, so they could produce and perform. They're good. You had mentioned 21 Pilots, still young enough, they could produce and perform. Paramore with Hayley Williams, she's got a fantastic voice. I'd say go on, still perform. And again, for touring purposes only, U2, you may write or produce something, but check with me first, just to make sure that we're not pissing off people like Ian.
People that remember when you were good. Yeah.
Pretty well. When's the last time? They're not terrible. I don't have an issue with them. But it just, I don't know, after all things left behind, we're good.
Even that. Yeah. Well, thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Now I'm looking at the impact of social media on rock and roll, and it's great. It's good news. Much of my content, by the way, is based on the article The Resurgence of Rock, examining the return of guitar-driven music, found on the website Music Charts 24. Ladies and germs, do keep in mind, one of our interpretations, or a big one, of rock music is guitar-driven music, all right? And I'm not going to get into prog, but basically it's guitar-driven music. Until recently, radio and TV were the main means of audience participation and distribution for rock bands, and all of that. But with the advent of social media, musicians can now communicate directly with their fans and get around these middlemen. Good for them. As a result, independent rock bands can now establish a devoted fan base and become well known without the help of major labels, democratizing the music business. That's really important, and really that's what this little talk's about. The primary way that people listen to music has changed because of streaming services like Apple Music and Spotify. Rock bands can now reach a worldwide audience without the need for physical distribution. Like, this is really mind-blowing, right? Which has leveled the playing field. To grow their fan base and promote their music, independent rock bands now depend heavily on social media. They sure do. Bands may share live performances and behind-the-scenes video, probably too many of them, on social media, places like TikTok and YouTube. In addition to championing the music they enjoy, fans of independent rock bands are also adding to the industry's diversity and vitality, with platforms like Spotify and Apple Music emerging as the go-to methods for listening to music. The rise of streaming services has completely changed the way that music is consumed, both positive and negative perhaps. The financial viability of the music industry has also come under scrutiny due to the streaming services. It sure has. Basically, the artists don't get paid. They're making a lot less money with streaming. I was reading recently with the amount of money that Spotify gives, and you couldn't feed a mouse on them. I mean, you'd have to be like Paul McCartney or Robert Plant. Most bands can't do it. So they're making much less money, and that's why more and more bands, everyone now is touring and opening little places with 400 or 500 people. And the merchandise sales are really being pushed now. Subgenres of rock music that suit a range of tastes have emerged. It's important to remember that. And our whole kind of thesis here that rock music, guitar-driven rock music, is not dead or dying. Often it's just being reinvented, and there's a lot of subgenres. Rock musicians now experiment with a wider range of tones and textures thanks to the development of new sounds for electric guitars and synthesizers and digital recording. And rock will keep up with changing tastes, avant-garde, what have you. It just keeps going. And rock music has always included live acts and concerts. They're really going back to Little Richard and Elvis Presley and these guys. It's always been around, and it always will be around. Now fans can directly support the survival of their favorite rock bands by going to concerts. They can support them online with Patreon and what have you. With the use of virtual reality and live streaming, people expect to attend concerts now virtually, and they can pay for that. Not everybody can travel that well, and it's just the next step. I'm not really crazy about virtual concerts myself, but apparently it's a growing trend. So you see, serious rock talk devotees, it's all good. The guitar-driven rock, as we said, is here for at least a while longer. So rest easy and trust people like Dr. Clark, Steve Crazy Legs Wheeler, and Ferris Madman Kennedy to keep you informed and up to 6 to 7% smarter than when you came in the door. I'm Dr. Clark, and I will lie to you only on a strategic basis, and you can count on that. Thank you.
Well, that's pretty interesting, Ian.
Yeah.
Do we have time to list people that have toured?
We sure do.
All right, so here's actually tying in quite nicely.
It does, because it shows the viability of rock.
Exactly. So we're talking about how classic rock, it's pretty well viable to music moving forward.
Sure.
Here's rockers that toured both in 1974 and last year in 2024. So we're
Wow.
just January. We're fresh.
Yeah.
We just hit January. We're maybe second week, give or take.
Yeah.
And here we are, 2024 that they toured. We have Alice Cooper, Billy Joel,
Interesting.
the Blue Oyster Cult,
Wow.
okay, Bob Dylan,
God help us.
Bruce Springsteen, Chicago.
Yeah, what version is that, right? You know what I mean?
The 25th.
The 2024 version.
Yeah,
Deep Purple,
what a great band, right? What a touring band they are.
Eagles, like I said, for
Yep.
touring purposes
Purposes
only.
Only.
Eric Clapton,
Yeah.
Grand Funk Railroad.
Wow. I didn't know that. They're touring?
Yeah.
Really?
The fake Guess Who. it's only Cale and Peterson.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Journey, the fake Journey.
Fake Journey.
Sorry. Judas Priest, I'm pretty sure it's all the original ones. Almost.
Really?
Well, Rob Halford is the second singer, I think, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good enough.
Judas Priest, Kansas.
Wow. Who
Okay.
could predict that?
I think Skinner is done.
I think they're done
Yeah,
too.
toured,
yeah.
I really do.
Because Steve Rosington, Rosington, he's the original guitarist passed. The Marshall Tucker Band,
Around forever.
Peter Frampton, he's looking pretty good when I
Yeah,
saw him at the Rock
really?
Hall of Fame. Yeah, he had this IBM. He was diagnosed with IBM.
Yeah.
and it's something to do with muscles.
Yeah.
but I guess the
He's still going,
medication
eh?
he's on is helping out. The fake Queen, because it's Adam
Yeah,
Lambert.
I know.
Queen. REO Speedwagon, didn't think they were. Still
They do a
around.
lot of Vegas shows.
Yeah. Santana,
Why not? Just one guy.
Scorpions,
Guess so.
Steely Dan,
One guy left.
Steve Miller Band,
Yeah, he's just basically one guy.
Stevie Nicks, who just actually for the 50th anniversary of SNL, she was performing already.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Same show as Ariana Grande was.
Yeah, right, hosting.
Guest
Yeah,
host,
yeah.
and Stevie Nicks was the musical.
Interesting, eh?
Styx, I don't know what version.
Yeah, really.
Todd Rundgren,
Okay, that's great. Good for him.
Van Morrison,
Difficult guy.
and then ZZ Top with no Dusty.
With one,
unfortunately.
yeah.
But, Elwood Francis has been the one that's replacing him.
Yeah, wow.
And to continue on what's relevant,
Yeah.
rock stars that turned 60 in 2024.
Who are they?
Duff McKagan,
Okay.
Eddie Vedder,
Okay.
Buzz Osborne from the Melvins,
Yeah.
Nice.
Rex Brown,
Okay.
Ron Sexsmith,
Canadian.
Yeah.
Mark Slaughter from Slaughter, Maynard James Keenan from Tool, Courtney Love, I didn't think she was that old, but okay.
Courtney, yeah. Okay, interesting.
Doug Ulrich,
Okay.
Eric Turner,
Great.
Tom Morello,
Okay.
Patty Griffin,
Okay, yeah, I know her.
Brad Roberts from Crash Test
Yeah.
Dummies,
Superman.
Stephen Beer, Madonna Wayne Gacy. I don't know why they have two names there, but the former Marilyn Manson member turned. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
one too. Okay. Tracy Chapman,
Okay.
Amy Ray, Dave Perner from Soul Asylum, Sam Coombs, Andy Bell from Erasure. Erasure, they were big in the
Yeah.
90s. Boyd Tinsley, Eric Peterson from Testament. Oh, Lenny Kravitz still looks good for his age, so he's
Oh, yeah.
60. Yeah.
He's still rocking.
Yeah. Scott Hill from Skid Row, Doro.
Really?
Yeah. Kerry King, Jimmy Chamberlain from the Smashing Pumpkins, Dickie Barrett. That's
Yeah.
the Mighty Mighty Boss Stones. Mike Edwards from Jesus Jones, Joey Allen from Warrant, Gary Moss, Damon Johnson from Thin Lizzy. I
Really?
would think they'd be older.
So do I.
Yeah.
That might be a...
Will Calhoun from Living Color, Simon Jen Matthews from Jesus Jones, Ian Hoagland from Europe. I would have
Wow.
thought older.
Yeah, okay.
Well, they did look old when they were young, so.
Yeah.
They were
Maybe-
20 in the 8.
I was going to say, really young.
Keanu Reeves from Dogstar, because
Yeah. He's the man.
Victor Wooten or Wooten, depends how you want to pronounce it. This one here from the Misfits, Ian Doyle Wolfgang von Frankenstein.
Okay.
You know who it is?
No.
Okay. Dave
I love his name, though.
Dave Snake Sabo from Skid Row, Stephen Jenkins from Third Eye Blind, Trey Anastasio from Fish, that's spelled P-H-I-S-H.
Yeah,
Yeah.
big band.
Robbie Takak from Goo Goo Dolls,
Okay. Goo Goo Dolls. And coming up next.
final, Matthew Sweet, Toby Mac, so he's a
kidding.
Christian rock singer.
Matthew Seats 60.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Robert Trujillo from Metallica.
I'm going to say, yeah.
And he's good. He was also with Suicidal Tendencies, so he's seasoned. Corey Glover from Living Color, David Elfson, Tony Rombola from Godsmack, Paul Landers from Rammstein, Dave Schools from Widespread Panic, and the last person that turned 60 that I have on the list here from in 2024 is Ginger Wildheart.
I'd say about a quarter of those names, you would never think they would have reached 60,
Yeah,
let
I
alone
guess so.
45. But
Well, Duff McKagan, I'm happy he's still
Yeah.
around because he is one of my favorite bassists. So
So hopefully we, had a pretty good thesis for proving that rock and roll is not dead. In fact, it's growing. It's stratified, and it's still around. And listen to these guys. We just read you a list of people that are still going strong. There's 60. Look, Mick Jagger is 130 now or something. So you can expect these guys to be around a long time.
I'm hoping.
I'm hoping. Thanks very much for listening in. I'm Dr. Ian Clark.
Stephen Wheeler.
Harris Kennedy.
Have a good evening and good morning. Bye-bye.
Bye.